now that we have a good idea of, what maybe interactions and where the overlap is, on that broader scale, we're going to start to get into, what actually happened locally, what actually happened with this project, what protocols did we follow and why do we follow those. And so to start with, though, we're going to talk about how, we'll start at the beginning. And so it all started with Alexandra Schmidt, and she is the soil scientist in Area 1 for NRCS, and she works in the Harrisonburg office. And so she is the one who brought the idea, the energy, and pushed to really make this happen. And so she decided to have this project in Rockingham County and to have this DSP project focus on Frederick soils. And the other thing is she wanted to focus this project on pasture and grassland land use. And that was because since she works in the Harrisonburg office with the Harrisonburg field office, she knew that there was a big emphasis on livestock on pasture, and there was a big investment that had been made through programs to improve the pastures in Rockingham County and to improve management. And so she decided to focus on that in this DSP project. And so I think it's just really important to highlight that none of this would have happened without the effort and the energy that Alexandra brought to this project to make it happen. And so I'm going to let her take over now. I'm going to try to give her control of this so that way she can control the PowerPoint. And she's going to talk a little bit about, why she started this project, some of the details of what we actually did. Alexandra, I see you have control now, so I will let you take it away.
That's right. Yeah, I have control, so we are good. Hi, everybody. My name is Alexandra. I'm the Area Resource Soil Scientist in Harrisonburg. I serve the Shenandoah Valley, Upper Blue Ridge, Upper Piedmont, and a little bit of the coastal plain. So I'm around quite a lot. But Lydia is too kind. Honestly, I was maybe more of the muscle behind this operation. Yes, I was the one who broke the slide hammer. Don't know how I did it, but okay. Sorry, Ryan. But Lydia has truly been the brains behind this operation. I don't think I would be able to take this conversation to the level that, Chris and Lydia are. So I'm very thankful for them. One thing that is definitely true is that she's been a tremendous help. Actually, this project, I think sampling ended on a Friday, and then I was in Wyoming on a detail out in sagebrush country doing some soil survey work on Monday. So yeah, she's just been awesome. So let's go ahead, and there is, let's see, maybe we can go to the next slide. There we go. I do want to thank Chris Seitz. Chris is the office leader in Mill Hall, Pennsylvania. Once I learned that his office had jurisdiction over the Rockingham County soil survey, I just kind of cold called him and wanted to hear his thoughts and see if it would be possible to recruit him for this DSP project. And thankfully, Chris was very much on board and was down here every day of sampling to help us characterize the soils. So definitely want to thank him for his hard work and dedication, and he's on today. So Chris, thank you for still sticking with us. I'm glad we haven't scared you away yet. So why start the Valley Pasture DSP project? For me, I would say I became interested in soil health when I was in my undergraduate program. I saw Ray Archuleta do his thing at a conference, and I just thought, wow, if this is what soil science can be, if it can be the interface between all of these different disciplines in the sciences coming together to, boost our agricultural system, I'm all in. And I thought this was kind of a way to maybe carry that torch forward. So also coming in as an intern and looking at the dollars that NRCS put out the door, I just became curious as to why we were not trying to quantify these changes in the soil. I thought it could be just a highly valuable asset to soil health research. Okay. I also became aware through Chris Lawrence at the national headquarters, was wanting to integrate soil health assessment into the general resource inventory at the field office level. So kind of what I wanted to know is how can we fine tune this approach to better serve our landowners and our conservationists in the field. And ultimately, that culminated in a bigger question, which is, which assessments and measurements are going to be the most useful to both landowners and the conservationists? So, how can Charlie Ivins and Corey Gilliams, what tools can we put in their hands to be able to help farmers understand where they're at with their farm? What can they do better? What parameters are maybe the most simple and easy to interpret? That's kind of where I wanted to get. So this is a highly open-ended question that has been studied by many, many folks over many decades. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to truly break the ground with my approach. But hey, I figured we could be the first to try and do a DSP project in the state. I just like to get out there and do things. Sometimes not always for the best, as we'll learn later, but thankfully we're going to learn a lot by just getting out there. So learning by doing, for sure. So yes, we learned a whole lot. I definitely think we did. I'm thankful for that. And then the next is identifying patterns in soil health as a result of pasture management. So if we could just identify some of these basic patterns, then maybe, just possibly, we can begin to fine-tune assessment in future projects. As we're going to see here in a second, there are just lots of possibilities when it comes to assessment. But my hope is that to lessen the burden on our field office staff, maybe not all of them are necessary. Maybe we can just have a few that are going to, tell a lot about what's going on in the soil and kind of ease that burden for everybody. So yeah, our project is not designed to answer what are the assessments we're going to do. It's just kind of a way to start this process. So for our approach, this kind of started, I found the 2021 Dynamic Soils Property Guide that's published by the NRCS Soils and Plant Science Division. So I kind of looked at that, it's for the national headquarters projects. This formalized protocol is just for the whole country. So I found that it maybe wasn't great, but it was somewhere to start. And because it was so thorough and I didn't really know what I was doing, I said, let's just try this. It's going to kind of get to where I want to be, which is we did all of these assessments. Okay, which ones actually mattered? So that within it has the protocol for your site selection and the sampling protocol as well. If you take a look at this guide, you can find it on the Dynamic Soil Properties website. But it's very thorough. And unless you're somebody who works with NASIS, which is the interface that our Soil Science Division uses to, get the data organized, that supports web soil survey, there's a lot of terminology in this guide that I felt was just not very clear. So it's easy to be confused. And Chris and I had to talk to a lot of folks to try to figure that out. But you can also find this simple table which tries to break down all the assessments that are available, and it organizes them into various tiers. So looking at these tiers, we would try to see what we would want to do to work on this assessment. What we learned is that the Kellogg Soil Survey Lab was completely backed up, and we're not taking samples for a year and a half. And that kind of forced us to come down to this intermediate tier, which was a lot of physical tests that we could do easily in the field. And I think we're going to get into this later, but that's where the partnership, reaching out to Alan and Dr. Stewart at Virginia Tech, came into play, because we could find, other ways to look at some of these more lab-based soil health assessments, and they were able to help us out with that, thankfully. So going into that site design, this is just the typical site layout as designed by the DSP folks. You're going to have one 10 by 10 meter field. You have a main pedon that's sampled to 1 meter. So we would dig about a foot and a half. And then Chris would auger out the rest of it to characterize the soil. And there's also 2 satellite pedons, and those are sampled to 50 centimeters. The goal of the satellite pedons is to confirm you're in the map unit. So as Lydia said, we were targeting the Frederick soil series. And for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with the soils of like the Frederick soil series, it's a limestone residual soil. I like to call it the bread and butter of the Shenandoah Valley. It's just that red, nice clayey stuff that we kind of know and love down here. So that's what we wanted to target. And with this approach, you can make sure that you're on the right map unit because, you know, soil surveys, not always 100% accurate. So yeah, those are going to be about 10 meters apart. Thank you, Carl. I see your thumbs up. So here's kind of what that looked like. We were able to get 5 sites under good management and 4 sites under bad management. And you guys can't see me, but I'm air quoting over here. Because we have 3 subsamples at each site, you're going to have 15 samples of good management and 12 samples under bad management or poor management. I guess we shouldn't say bad. Needs improvement management. Ultimately, we sampled the surface, even though, you know, we looked at a depth of 50 centimeters in the satellite head-ons and 100 centimeters in the main head-ons. We did do surface sampling to assess, because we're doing soil health. We took surface samples of each. So that's kind of where we ended up. We have 27 samples. And then here's ultimately what that looks like. These little ticks are the actual farms we visited. And then each one was either selected for, yes, alternative outcome management, its management system. So we ended up having 9 sites, 9 days of field work. It was a blast. So thank you everybody who helped us make that happen. Let's see. All right, that's Lydia, all I have. I guess if folks have any specific questions, maybe is it better for them to ask them now while I'm kind of here?
Yeah, if you go to the next slide, it's actually to ask, it's a question slide, so.
Awesome, and then you can take back control at your convenience.
All right, I think we're good now. So does anybody have any questions for Alexandra about what she shared with us?
Hi, this is Chris Seitz-Super with the USDA NRCS. I was the one that mentioned up to Pennsylvania that came down to help and et cetera. I want to say I am with Soil Survey, but I will say when she mentioned that simplified chart, that is very generous, and I thank her for that. But that, yes.
Yeah, it's I can't emphasize enough how much information that the Soils and Plant Science Division has really put out. And Mark has a question. Can I briefly describe our criteria for good and poor management? So we're going to talk about that a little bit. That's something that, you know, maybe I could have done better. The truth is I am a soil scientist, so I'm not out, you know, doing resource assessment like our soil conservationists are. So maybe I was a little bit naive in my approach. So ultimately, I just came to our field office and said, hey, here's what we're trying to do. Who are like the best of the best that you have? And maybe who are some of the folks that need a little guidance on getting better? What I failed to, you know, ask about was, how long have folks been, you know, farming in this style? What's some of the history? So I think that the field office provided exactly what I asked for, but maybe I should have asked for something a little bit more specific, if that makes sense. So I guess what really the criteria was, you know, management intensive rotational grazing. Those were kind of our good land managers, and then conventional continuous graze was our poor management.
I was just going to say,
oh,
go ahead.
Oh, I also wanted to chime in though that what was also important, at least I thought so, was that originally when she proposed like doing all 9 of the sites, I thought like, well, that's more than we needed. But looking back, I am glad that we did more than we needed.
Yeah. Go ahead, Alex.
No, you're fine. I should say good. I'm glad because we definitely put this to work. So glad that wasn't all in vain.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say if Corey, I think Corey was on here, the district conservationist for the Harrisonburg office. He's the one that was vital in helping us pick sites and getting us in contact with landowners and picking out the sites that, you know, met the criteria that Alexandra's asking for. So I thought maybe he was on here. So Corey, if you wanted to add anything about how you recommended sites to Alexandra, feel free to do that, because you are the one that you know has that knowledge of all those farmers and their management, and were able to convey that and share that with us, which made it possible for this project to happen, because you know it's a lot of work, like we're going to talk about, to get that in-depth detailed management. So having Corey as a resource to, you know, provide that information without us having to really do too much work was very valuable in this project.
I'll just add that Alexandra came to us with a clear proposal and plan, and I mean I'm a very much a visual person, and she painted a picture in my head of what she was looking for, and so I just tried to use her description of what she was wanting to do with this project to match up, you know, suitable landowners. And it happened that a lot of our project sites were kind of in the same geographic area in the kind of the northern northeastern part of Rockingham County, and it worked out pretty good. So I just finished the picture that Alexandra painted for me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Corey. And thank you for donating your staff to help the cause as well. We do have a question from Alan, which is why were 9 sites selected? There was a minimal protocol kind of recommended in the DSP guide. I believe that was fewer than 9. However, we had 9 farmers interested. So I figured it would not hurt to maybe reach a little further. I think what we needed was maybe 3 of the good and 3 of the poor management. And then we ended up just getting a little bit more.
I'll just add that, you know, that was exactly what you had told us, that you want at least 3 of each site. And, you know, that we have kind of pasture management here is a relative term, as we all know. And so I tried to pick people on the extremes, like a poor management, people that are doing like intensive management, and kind of some sites in between, just to kind of see.
Yeah, that was really, like I said, that was really valuable to be able to, you know, utilize the knowledge that you already had of all of these landowners and their management there. And so, yeah, were there any other questions? I see things popping up in the chat, but I can't see the chat. So I don't know if Alexandra or Chris, if you want to, if there were any other questions at this point.
We're up to date on the questions in the chat. Yes, Carl has a good point. Thankfully, Carl is the Amusameter master and came and gave us a bunch of help driving all the way from southeastern Virginia. Yes, the valley was in extreme drought at the time. So I looked at some of the rainfall data. We had, you know, I believe the month of April was less, it was so like 1 in 10 years, it was still drier than that. It was, I just cannot emphasize how dry it was.